Last year, we presented a budget that charted the way forward for our country. That budget was a key stepping stone towards fulfilling the plan which we have to recover, rebuild, and ultimately revolutionize our country. These were the words shared by the Honorable 𝗪𝗓𝗪𝗧𝗛𝗧, KC, Prime Minister of the Bahamas, during his presentation on the final budget report for 2023. This is the final budget report for 2023 in review. Keep watching. A brand new episode of You and Your Money starts now.
You and Your Money is brought to you by the Ministry of Finance.
Welcome to You and Your Money, everyone. Joining us today to talk about the final budget report for 2023 in review is Financial Secretary Mr. Simon Wilson. Mr. Wilson, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
The budget serves as a roadmap for our country's financial direction, outlining the government's plans, priorities, and strategies to address the challenges we face and capitalize on the opportunities that lie ahead. Tell us, how does the budget address the country's fiscal challenges and ensure fiscal responsibility?
So this year's budget focused on a massive reduction in the deficit. The deficit is scheduled to be 0.9% of GDP, which is a reduction of 2.9% of GDP from the previous fiscal period. So that's how the budget addresses those points.
Now, you talk about the plan is to actually address some of these deficits. How is it that I want you to give us a little bit more specifics as it relates to how does the government plan to address any existing or potential fiscal deficits? And then the other part of it is, I want you to talk about how is it that the government plans to monitor and evaluate the effectiveness of the measures outlined and then ensure a sustainable fiscal balance in the long term.
So the key thing with a budget is a continuous process. Mm-hmm. So monitoring and evaluation takes place on a monthly basis.
Okay.
Every month, we go back, we check our numbers, we check our performance and our key agencies and our key performance indicators. The government's focus is expanding the tax base and improving revenue compliance. That's how we address future deficits, is not by increasing taxes, but mainly by expanding the tax base and improving revenue compliance.
When you talk about expanding the tax base, what do you mean by expanding the tax base?
What we mean by expanding tax base is identifying areas where for whatever reason, the tax administration has been weak, and persons have not been paying their fair share, or identifying areas where there's an opportunity for persons to contribute more to the exchequer.
Have you found in that particular exercise that it has been successful with people actually coming in to make their contributions?
Yes. Most people want to pay their taxes. Where we find an opportunity to expand tax base is in the tourism sector. The Bahamas has a very large tourism sector, and for a number of years, that sector has not been taxed at the same level as the domestic sector. So there's a balance here. You know, we want to encourage tourism, but we want to make sure that tourists who come to this country pay their fair share for the services that we provide.
All right. In the budget presentation, there was a mention of a debt for nature swap. That is something that's being considered for the upcoming fiscal. How would this actually work, and what are some of the implications for the country with such an arrangement?
So a debt for nature swap involves an NGO, like the Nature Conservancy or so forth, and it's being done in Barbados, in Belize, and elsewhere. And so what it involves is the government making a commitment on nature conservancy, on conservation, for example, expanding the amount of marine protected areas and so forth. And the government will then be able to borrow at a lower rate, use that lower rate to retire more expensive debt. So that's how a debt nature swap works. Conservation to help reduce the cost of debt.
I think that's a very interesting approach to actually use conservation to actually help with the debt component.
Yeah, it is. But you know, conservation provides benefits to the economy, and so this is a way for countries to monetize those benefits up front.
That's good. Well, now, when you consider the revenue projections for 2023, are we on track with the strategies that were put in place to enhance the revenue collection?
For this year, yes, we are on track. This year has been a very good year for revenue. We believe that this year, our original target was 2.8 billion. We believe we'll come in around 2.9 billion. So it's been a very good year.
So that means you were on track to exceed what it is that was put forth in the last budget.
Yes, we are on track.
That's good. Now, does that have anything to do with the digital component, with being able to persons being able to pay online?
I think it's all those things. Obviously, making taxes more convenient for people to pay will encourage compliance. So that's a big part of what we want to do, make it more convenient.
And is the government on track as it relates to having to digitize some of the other agencies?
Yes, we have a strong program in terms of digitizing services for citizens. And so that's going pretty well.
What are some of those steps that's being taken when we talk about having to promote the transparency and accountability in the budgeting process? This is where we're talking about having to ensure that the public funds are allocated and utilized efficiently. And more specifically, I want you to speak to some of the concerns that would have been raised from the entities like the Organization for Responsible Governance in that the budget doesn't adequately support mechanisms that promote transparency and accountability.
But the budget's focus is to present the fiscal plan of the government. Transparency and accountability framework involves a number of agencies, the Auditor General's Office, our Internal Audit Office, soon to be Financial Ombudsman for the government. And so that's the framework there, all right? And I think when the ORG spoke about promoting transparency and accountability, they didn't look at the various components which are funded in the budget.
Okay.
I think if we look at the Bahamas in terms of fiscal transparency, with the new PFM Act, the new Public Procurement Act, we've done a credible job in terms of promoting fiscal transparency. It is not perfect, but we are well on our way to improving our scores going forward.
Well, it's good to know that we are well on our way when it comes to the financial aspect of our country. Mr. Wilson, we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want us to look at the budget allocation and the socioeconomic policies. This is You and Your Money. We'll be right back.
The sand dollar is a safe and easy alternative to cash. It is the digital version of the Bahamian dollar we know so well. Like banknotes and coins, the sand dollar is legal tender issued and regulated by the Central Bank of the Bahamas. Unlike cryptocurrencies, you can't invest in sand dollars, just like you can't invest in cash. One sand dollar will always be worth one Bahamian dollar.
Meet 𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗛, your bridge to the future. Wealth planning, investments, corporate services, trust services, pension administration, fund administration, outsourced accounting, and payroll. When you think of financial solutions, think of 𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗛. Local or international, company or individual, 𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗛 can help. Our team of skilled professionals has the experience and expertise needed for you to strive. Your goals are our goals and our priority. 𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗛 will guide you to the right financial solution with the knowledge, resources, and support you need. Give us a call at 242-396-3225 or email us at info@𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗛𝗏𝗡𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 to get started. Visit our website, www.𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 for more information today. 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗛, your bridge to the future.
Hi, my name is Amanda Ferguson with Biggity Candle Company. With Sand Dollar, we were very pleased to know that we were offered another way for customers to make payments that were digital. We don't like handling cash, the physical cash anymore. It's safer that way. I can tell you that, I won't go back. I'd much rather the transactions being on my phone. It's simple, it's instantaneous, and my customers have actually really loved it too.
Do business better with Sand Dollar. Learn more at sanddollar.bs.
Welcome back to You and Your Money. We're continuing our discussion and review of the recently held Final Budget 2023, where the Prime Minister presented the 9-month fiscal performance for 2022-2023. Discussing this Final Budget 2023 with us today, focusing more on budget allocation and socioeconomic policies in this segment, is Financial Secretary Mr. Simon Wilson. Mr. Wilson, before the break, we spoke about fiscal management and budgetary policies. Can you now tell us, how does the budget address social welfare programs and initiatives to support vulnerable populations in the country?
Yes. So this year's budget had a major theme of protecting the vulnerable populations. So we started first with crime, all right? And again, as usual, the government provided considerable resources towards the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Defense Force, as well as corrections, as well as rehabilitative services. In addition, funding was in the budget for domestic violence, the combat against domestic violence, either directly through the Ministry of Social Services or indirectly through NGOs. This budget also includes funding, an increase for funding for independent schools, as well as increase overall for education. So this is how the budget, those are the key allocations for the vulnerable populations.
Right. Now, what are some of those measures, as you're talking about, some of those key components, what are measures that's being taken to promote financial inclusion and literacy among the citizens, especially in underserved communities?
So in this year's budget, we have allocation for credit counseling for the first time.
Wow.
Because what we find is that a lot of persons don't understand their rights in terms of accessing financial products and so forth. And so in this year's budget, we have allocated in the Ministry of Economic Affairs funding for credit counseling.
Is there also a component in terms of having to have that education with students from primary school level up?
Yes, but more importantly, primary school, in the curriculum, there is some financial education, but more importantly, it is when persons enter the workforce for the first time. They need to understand the implications of taking on high levels of consumer debt early on.
All right. What about having to tie in conversations even as relates to retirement for those persons that are exiting?
Yeah, retirement, true. Retirement is important also. And so for in this year, the government's reiterated its commitment towards making adjustments with the its own pension plan. Making its pension plan contributory as opposed to non-contributory, which is helping persons to plan better for their future.
All right. Now, what about, can you provide us with an update as it relates to the government's plans for infrastructure development and investment, and how will it be financed to ensure long-term sustainability?
So the focus is on innovative financing,
okay,
i.e. using the private sector more to fund infrastructure development as opposed to tax dollars, because the private sector is more efficient, can drive developments much quicker. So the real focus in this year's budget is using innovative financing for large infrastructure projects.
And that innovative financing, like you say, it's going to be at a good rate.
Well, there's a trade-off, eh? So obviously it's going to be at a good rate, but more importantly, things such as cost overruns, things such as delays, extension of time, delays in project delivery, with the private sector is involved, those things are much more tightly managed than the government.
Now, how does the government also plan to address any existing disparities or inequalities in the income distribution and ensure that the economic growth benefits all segments of society?
Well, the focus of this administration is really on farmland development, because income inequality in the Bahamas tends to be more pronounced when you look at New Providence versus the Family Islands.
Okay.
And in this year's budget communications, for the first time, the Minister of Finance spoke about economic development in each particular island, economic growth. And that's the focus. How do we drive economic growth in individual islands to try to minimize income inequality among citizens of the country?
I think it's good to know that there is an intentionality that's behind having to ensure that the income, or even when you're looking at it, it's more so a holistic approach across the Family Islands and not necessarily New Providence centric, which typically happens at times. Now, there were also some concerns indicated regarding the compliance of the GBPA and its related companies with the terms and conditions of the Hawksbill Creek Act and its subsequent amendments. Can you provide further insights into the specific challenges that's being faced by the Grand Bahama economy, and then elaborate on the government's plan for addressing the decline, particularly regarding the Hawkesbury Creek economic model and the governance model of the Grand Bahama Port Authority?
So I think if you look at the Prime Minister's statement, he indicated that the Grand Bahamian economy has been in a state of decline for the last 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. Last year there was a decline when the province economy grew in double digits. That was a concern. And he raised the concern about whether the model for Grand Bahama, mm-hmm. which is the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement, will be an attraction for foreign direct investment, is still applicable in the 21st century. And he also indicated that the government is coming close to making a decision, and there'll be an announcement soon. That's all I can say about this right now. The Prime Minister's comments that the government is looking at it closely and will come up with a statement soon about it.
Well, hopefully once we do get this statement, we'll be able to see how what it is that's being put in place in order to cause there to be a turnaround for the Grand Bahama economy.
Okay.
Mr. Wilson, well, we have to take another break. When we get back, we'll talk about the economic growth and development in this new fiscal year and what it will look like. This is You and Your Money. We'll be right back.
The sand dollar is a safe and easy alternative to cash. It is the digital version of the Bahamian dollar we know so well. Like banknotes and coins, the sand dollar is legal tender issued and regulated by the Central Bank of the Bahamas. Unlike cryptocurrencies, you can't invest in sand dollars, just like you can't invest in cash. One sand dollar will always be worth one Bahamian dollar.
Meet 𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗛, your bridge to the future. Wealth planning, investments, corporate services, trust services, pension administration, fund administration, outsourced accounting, and payroll. When you think of financial solutions, think of 𝗪𝗏𝗧. Local or international, company or individual, 𝗪𝗏𝗧 can help. Our team of skilled professionals has the experience and expertise needed for you to strive. Your goals are our goals and our priority. 𝗪𝗏𝗧 will guide you to the right financial solution with the knowledge, resources, and support you need. Give us a call at 242-396-3225 or email us at info@𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗛.com to get started. Visit our website, www.𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗛.com, for more information today. 𝗪𝗏𝗧, your bridge to the future.
Hi, I'm Ria Christina, and I'm super excited to be the new host of You and Your Money, local international banks that has actually been closing some of their branches. It actually gives me an opportunity to share my views, my take on the financial matters. Even when we think about what's happening globally, we still have a lot of work to do in terms of having to educate business owners as to the importance, the economic impact, and how it is that we can look at improving the Bahamian economy. $1 billion. That's how much we spend every year importing food in this country. It also gives me an opportunity to have conversations, and that's meaningful conversations with thought leaders within our community, even having to see how it is that we can work together, or even the opportunities that may exist for many Bahamians. So I'm excited to be here and looking forward to the great conversations that's to come.
Hi, my name is Amanda Ferguson with 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧. With Sand Dollar, we were very pleased to know that we were offered another way for customers to make payments that were digital. We don't like handling cash, the physical cash anymore. It's safer that way. I can tell you that, I won't go back. I much rather the transactions being on my phone. It's simple, it's instantaneous, and my customers have actually really loved it too.
Do business better with Sand Dollar. Learn more at 𝗪𝗏𝗧𝗛.bs.
Welcome back to You and Your Money. Financial Secretary Mr. Simon Wilson is still with us. In the previous segments, we spoke about fiscal management and budgetary policies, in addition to the budget allocation and socioeconomic policies. In this segment, I want us to talk about economic growth and development. Mr. Wilson, are there any planned initiatives or reforms to enhance tax compliance and broaden the tax base? while ensuring the fairness and minimizing the burden on individuals and businesses?
Yes, so our focus is using technology to broaden the tax base and ensure equity. So be it through online payment portals or artificial intelligence to look for anomalies in taxpayers to ensure that all taxpayers are treated properly and fairly. That's our focus.
Well, I mean, just to hear you say we're utilizing artificial intelligence, it says to me that we're headed in the right direction because we're staying up to date with what is available. What measures are being implemented to attract foreign direct investment and stimulate economic growth, particularly in key sectors such as tourism, finance, and technology?
So I think the last fiscal year, the government embarked on a program to automate its investment approval process. That's largely being completed, and that is the first step towards what the government terms Invest Bahamas, a autonomous investment promotion and approval agency.
Now, how will the government also look at having to support some of these small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, in the upcoming budget to foster entrepreneurship and create job opportunities?
So what we want our small business to be green. So this year, in the upcoming fiscal year, the government is going to access a $20 million line of credit from the European Investment Bank, which will allow green investment by our small businesses. So i.e. more use of renewable energies, more energy efficient manufacturing processes, more energy efficient delivery of services, being green, which will give them much more benefits.
Now, is that to give an indication that there are going to be a lot more grant programs that's coming on stream, those kinds of initiatives?
Grant small, grant soft loans, yes.
All right, well, I'm sure we have plenty of small businesses looking forward to when those programs are coming about. Can you provide an update on the government's efforts to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of public expenditure, including measures to streamline government agencies and eliminate where there may be wasteful spending?
So in this year, our state-owned enterprises saw a reduction in the allocation by over $30 million. All right? That's the first step in the process. In addition, what we did was we set out guidelines for the first time to state-owned enterprises in terms of how they manage subvention resources.
Mr. Wilson, now as we talk about what the plans are for the upcoming fiscal, are there any plans for investments as it relates to agriculture, marine, anything of those sorts?
Yes, so the government has a big focus on food security. So the allocation food security has increased by over $2 million. You know, egg production is very important. Agricultural training through 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗓 is very important. So it's a huge push for agriculture and marine resources.
So we're looking at getting the educational component, and I'm guessing that there will probably be some grant initiatives that's around this as well?
Yes, especially with small farmers, because you know the model for egg production is have small farmers produce the eggs and have a centralized distribution and marketing system. So that is a way to encourage a lot of small businesses by using egg production. And if we are able to reduce our egg imports, we could save over $30 million in foreign currency expenditure.
Now, I know you made mention of the egg component. Is there any other opportunities that's available, particularly as it relates to agriculture?
There are a number of others. There's greenhouse farming. We talked about vegetable farming or leaves or green leaves farming. That's involved. Then there's on the marine sector. The government has produced a new framework, a compliance framework for the marine sector to ensure that persons, fisher folks, pay their fair share, but also are not impeded in terms of accessing the sector.
Are there any new taxes that we need to be aware of, and if so, what are they? So
yes, I think there are two very, very important ones. One, the partial tax on cruise visitors, which comes into effect on January 1st, 2024, and that's an additional $5 per visitor. And then we have a tourism development levy, which comes into effect on January 1st also. And that tourism development levy actually goes to the Tourism Development Corporation to be reinvested back in tourism. All right, so that's new. We actually collecting a specific tax which goes back to be reinvested back into tourism, back into the product. The product is very, very important. So this is our way of enhancing the product and making sure the product is at the top level to keep our competitiveness. And then in addition, we have an environmental levy for cruise passengers, which also comes into effect in January. So yes, there's some new taxes, but these have very specific purposes, really for us to get more of the tourism industry. The industry has given us a lot of jobs over the years, but there's been a question whether the industry has given us the financial returns expected. And then the other part of it is making sure that we have resources put back directly in the industry. So we have this tourism development levy which does that.
Well, it's good to see that, you know, while there are new taxes that's being implemented, there is an intent behind it and a purpose behind it in terms of it going right back into the tourism agency, and then of course them being able to have to reinvest and divest or put the funds where it is that it actually needs to go. Mr. Wilson, can you talk to us a bit about why was the NIB not included in the actual presentation, and what is it that we can actually expect?
So NIB has always been kept separate from the budget. Okay. If we look at our history, the NIB has been dealt with as an autonomous fund, not related to the government's own fiscal management. I think the Prime Minister recently spoke about NIB and the reform process for there. You know, and the key thing he said was that yes, there is going to be an increase, but prior to that increase, there's going to be substantial reforms within NIB to make sure there's value for money and that the increase is sustainable on a long term.
Well, I'm sure it's important from the Bahamian public's perspective. It's going to be very important for them to be able to see where the value for the money is coming in, of course, when we're talking about having an increase.
Yes, but I think that's why the Prime Minister is quite clear in terms of things the government's going to do prior to the increase coming into force.
So can you give us an indication as to what are some of those things that we can expect? Well,
I think there's always the one concern is that is their compliance level up to an acceptable standard?
Okay.
You know, so obviously people want to see more on compliance because everybody has a story about there has been so-and-so hasn't paid or shouldn't pay and still benefiting. Compliance is one. Customer service is two. People want a better experience when they go to any government agency for service. If they're paying more, they want a better experience. That's number two. And number three is people want to make sure that the funds which they contribute are being used efficiently. So those are the three things.
Well, definitely, you know, one of the things, as you talked about the customer service, because customer service is a sore spot across the country, there's definitely the training component that will need to be considered as it relates to that.
No doubt about that. That is so true.
Well, Financial Secretary, Mr. Simon Wilson, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Okay, thank you.
Today, we've explored the potential impacts on the various sectors and gained valuable insights into our financial health. As we move forward, upward, and onward together, let us remain engaged and informed, playing an active role in the ongoing dialogue surrounding our country's economic future. Also, don't forget to follow You and Your Money on Facebook and tune in next week for a brand new episode. I'm Ria Christina. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
You and Your Money was brought to you by the Ministry of Finance.